So number 16, given g of x equals 2x squared plus 3x plus 10, k of x equals 2x plus 16, solve the equation g of x equals 2 k of x. Now notice, this is question number 35 on an exam. So this is one of those 4-point questions. And where we can really go off the rails is in the very beginning. That initial equation, when I set these equal to each other, I can't just say g of x equals k of x. I have to put the 2 in front. So g of x equals 2 times the value of k of x. Now we're going to distribute that. When we distribute the 2, we get 4x plus 32. So our goal is to get everything on the same side of the equal sign. So we extend our equal sign, and we're going to subtract 4x and subtract 32 from both sides of our equation. So minus 4x minus 32. And bring down our CLT line. Now, when I combine like terms, everything's on one side of my equal sign. And when I solve a quadratic equation, that's what I need. I need the squared term and all the other terms along with it to be on the same side of the equal sign. Now, they ask us to explain why we chose the method we did for this quadratic equation. A huge hint that they gave us was they told us we're rounding to the nearest tenth. If we're rounding, we're not going to be able to factor this trinomial. And there are no factors of negative 22 that we can combine to get a negative 1. It's not going to happen. So we're going to use the quadratic formula. Now, the great thing about the quadratic formula is this isn't something we actually have to have memorized. We just have to know how to use it. So this will be on our reference sheet for the exam. X equals opposite b plus or minus the square root, b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. So we need to identify a, b, and c. A is the number in front of your squared term. A is 2. B is the number in front of x, but you keep the sign with it. So b is negative 1. C is the constant all by itself that has a sign. This is an integer, negative 22. Now we're going to take A, B, and C and plug them into the quadratic formula. So where you can mess this up is we have a negative b. So our b, we actually take the opposite to start. So it's 1 plus or minus, then we have our square root. Inside the square root, that b is still negative 1, but we're squaring that negative 1. When you square a negative, always put it inside parentheses, because we know our end result is a negative times a negative is going to be a positive. Minus 4 times a, which was 2, times c, which was negative 22, all over 2 times a again, which was 2. So that's going to give us 4. Now, the upside of this is we don't have to just calculate the discriminant. We're going to put this entire thing in the calculator because they're having us round to the nearest tenth anyway. So from my calculator page, home screen, new doc, say no to drugs, and add a calculator page. Now, I'm not going to type x equals. I'm just going to start with a fraction, control divide, and then opposite b. But my calculator doesn't have a plus or minus button. So I'm going to start with 1 plus the square root, b squared minus 4ac. All over 2 times 2. Now, double check, make sure that what you put in the calculator looks exactly like what you're trying to find on your paper, because if you miss one of your signs, obviously everything you do after that will be wrong. So now we press enter, and we get 3.57. That's only one of our answers. Remember, I put a plus here. The other answer is going to have the minus. So work smarter, not harder. Go up and steal that. Press enter. And we're just going to go through and edit it. We change that plus to a minus. And that's our second answer. So we're told to round our answers to the nearest tenth. That's one decimal place. So my first x equals -3 points. If I look at 0.7, the 7 says raise the score, so I make that 0 a 1. So to the nearest tenth, we've got -3.1. For our second answer, x equals +3, 5, 7. So that 7 tells us to raise that 5 up to a 6, so 3.6. Now, we have almost all of our points except for one detail. We're told to explain why we chose to use the quadratic formula in this situation. So my explanation, I want to be brief, but I do have to write a sentence to make sure I get full credit. So briefly and succinctly, I said I used the quadratic formula since the quadratic did not factor. So we know when a quadratic doesn't factor, we can always use the quadratic formula to find any roots to a quadratic equation. And that's full credit.